Thanks, Sue, so much for doing this.
You're very welcome.
I know
Thank you guys for coming. I appreciate it.
sometimes the businesses on this side of town, because they're at the very edge of town, they get forgotten. You know, I mean, even for me as the mayor, I live on the west side of town, so it's a long way. You know, it's a long way to get here, right? Because you know, it's just the way traffic is, whatever. So sometimes we forget about what we have on this side of town as well. So, you know, this is great, and we love it here. And thank you so much for the support. Thank you so much for supporting the village.
You're my favorite.
So, well, thank you. So, I don't really have an agenda of things to talk about. So what we have had done is we're doing a survey right now, and we don't have the complete number of surveys we want back yet, but we've got probably 170 people have responded. A little heavily weighted to people without kids and people who are older than 45, but gives us some perspective, just getting feedback. So I kind of went through, I've got like 70 pages of, you know, comments and things that I kind of flipped through and, you know, saw some things in here that, you know, maybe we talk about a little bit up front and then open up any questions that you have. Maybe some of the stuff I'm going to talk about are things that are of concern to you. So one of the things that we talk a lot about in the survey is we ask questions about our police department. That's why the chief is here. And then I want to touch on the police issue so then he can go back out and police. You know, so we see some things in here. One is that the community is by and large, is very supportive of the police. There's always those couple of people who aren't, and they have lots to say. But very supportive of the police, very supportive of how safe the community is. But we do hear a lot about, you know, one, you see, there's a lot of people say, oh, we need to hire more officers. Well, so that's one. Another thing that we see a lot is that I saw a lot of comments about how they're not in my neighborhood ever. And probably the third one is about how the mall is not safe. So I just want to kind of address all of those issues. So one, as far as more police officers. Hey, if we had an unlimited budget, I'd love to have more officers. I'd love to have more personnel everywhere. But the reality is, if we hire more police officers, we have to take away from somewhere else in the village. It means that we don't get the streets, the streets plowed, or we take away other services. And the reality is, we have a great department. We have a great force. We've added some part-time officers who are, by and large, they're retired officers. So they're officers. It's a lot more cost-effective for us. And the results speak for themselves. The last 5 years, we've been tracking it, for 29 years we've been tracking crimes. And I know you'll hear from some people, oh, we don't report all our crimes, and we write tickets now and those don't count. That's actually not true. So everything we write a municipal ticket counts as a crime, just like every other thing that in fact, I would say that the stuff that we write as municipal tickets count more crimes, because some of the stuff that's unsolved and stays open, we may not have a conclusion as to what crime it was. So would that be fair to say? We don't report things any differently today than we did 29 years ago, do we?
At least 20 years that I've been here, we don't.
So the last 5 years are the lowest 5 years in the last 29 for index crimes.
Wow.
And that's a fact. So now that's not to say that we're not busy. We are probably busier than we were 20 years ago. There's just a lot more going on. We are a lot more proactive than we were 20 years ago, and I think Chief's nodding his head there on that. So we do a lot of things that we didn't have to do before. So we're not saying that the world's this, all lollipops and rainbows. It's not, and it's a more dangerous world probably than it was 20 years ago. But we are still very successful here in Orland Park, and it's because of our police department, it's because of the chief and the chiefs that came before him, and the great officers that we have. The other thing is the mall. Now, many of you have been here before. You've heard me say this. I've said it for 6.5 years now. We have the safest mall in the Chicagoland region, and the numbers bear that out. Is that correct, Chief? It's safer than Oak Brook. It's safer than Woodfield. Those are the facts. Those are the facts based on what crimes are committed in and around those malls. Okay? But The mall is still, obviously, it has a lot of retail. We have 12 million square feet of retail, but it's concentrated at the mall. Retail theft is our biggest crime. What is it, 90%, 80% of our crimes?
At least 90%.
Yeah, so 90% of our crimes. So, and retail theft, you know, it's going to be concentrated at the mall. That's always going to be the case. We instituted a youth supervision, not we, but the mall put in a youth supervision program in 2021, in March of 2021. So now it's been going on for 2.5 years. Now, it's something that I pushed for with them since, say, 2017, when I first started meeting with them. Chief McCarthy was active in trying to push for it. They were very resistant because they've never done it anywhere else. And essentially, I got to a point in 2021, I said, hey, what do you have to lose? If you implement this and it doesn't work, you can stop. If it works, you can expand it elsewhere. And we gave them a lot of support. So they covered every door. So the youth supervision program, Fridays and Saturdays were the highest crime, highest retail theft, and it was mostly minors committing those thefts, okay? Over, you know, the history when you look at it. So they were pretty high theft times. So they implemented the youth supervision program, what, 5 o'clock on Fridays and 4 o'clock on Saturdays?
I think it's like 3.
3?
3 to close Fridays and Saturdays.
3 to close on Fridays and Saturdays. I think that's a bit of an expansion. It used to be 4 or 5. But anyways, so 3 to close Fridays and Saturdays, where they have to be accompanied, if they're under 18, they have to be accompanied by an adult, okay, over 21. They initially started covering every door, and we had an officer at every door kind of set aside just in case there were issues. And we did that probably for the first couple months. And now we're down to what, 4 officers during that time?
We're trying to get 4 to 5.
So we cover it with 4 to 5 officers during those periods. And they're part-time officers, so it's less costly. I've had the pushback, well, how dare you pay for police at the mall? The mall should be paying for it. Well, the mall does pay for it. The mall is 10% of our tax base. So they kind of pay for, they deserve protection as well. It's very important for the whole community to protect the mall. And 2.5 years of that going on, and now mind you, these were the highest crime periods, hours at the mall, and we've had a handful, just a few, retail thefts in 2.5 years at that. So, and some of those are committed by adults, not by kids. So, but literally, what, one hand maybe you can count them? Very minimal, and that's in 2.5 years at the highest crime. So it's had a huge impact. Very well received by the mall, by the tenants, by the people, and and here we get a lot of comments about the mall not being safe, etc. But I also noticed that 1/3 of the people that responded to this haven't been in the mall in a year. So you need to go there. I'm not a big mall shopper. I'm sure you're shocked by that. Anywhere, but I've been, I go into our mall, and my wife goes into the mall, and we're like, it's like any other mall I've been to in the nicest communities in the country. It's no different. It's very safe, and but we do. And then the other thing is, we don't have a presence at the mall. I can tell you right now, we always have a presence at the mall. You may not see it. Sometimes it's visible, sometimes it's not visible. Sometimes it's one, sometimes it's more. Sometimes it's inside, sometimes it's outside. But is it safe to say, Chief, we always have a presence at the mall?
99% of the time, for the entire year, there are officers at the mall.
Are they undercover?
They could be.
They could be, yeah. So, 99% of the time, I would say there's maybe less than a handful of days where we don't have somebody there just because of
staffing, or there's an incident somewhere else that they've got to come off to help with something because something happened, fatal car crash or something crazy like that. But we have a presence all the time, and we're constantly changing up how we do things, inside, outside, special units looking at, because we know the mall's a magnet because it's got so much retail there. It's a magnet for retail theft. It's a magnet for people. Wherever you have the most people is where you have the most likely to have incidents. Right. So that's why it's, as Chief McCarthy used to tell me, so anyone who remembers when I ran for office, I had a whole list of things that I said, this is my agenda. I will tell you, if you go back to that, everything on that agenda has been done or is in progress of being done, except for one. And that was, I said, a satellite, I just broached the idea of a satellite station at the mall. And I asked Chief McCarthy when I first got elected about that, and he said, listen, Mayor, we are 2 blocks away. We have 24/7 access to their cameras and to their security office. So essentially, we have a station at the mall. They probably have the best camera system in Orland Park, or certainly it's very, very good that we have access to all the time. In fact, it's helped us solve crimes that are off of their premises because their cameras are that good. We have access to it all the time, and we almost always have an officer. As you heard, we have an officer pretty much all the time, at least one. So he says that's the safest place in all of Orland if there's an incident. And we effectively have a station there already, so we don't need one. And I've said, that makes sense to me. I'll take that one off the list. Okay? Because he's certainly the expert, and I think the chief would agree with that position. So, so that's kind of the situation on public safety. So while we have the chief here, if you have public safety questions, go ahead and ask them.
What about the parking lot around the mall? I'm afraid to go from the parking lot to the mall by myself.
So the question was regarding the parking lot outside of that. So let me just preface it with this. I've grown up in this community my entire life. My entire family lives in this community. I take pride in keeping this community safe. In regards to the mall and the parking lot, we have undercover officers that are constantly in that mall. The way that we patrol Orland Park, it's very, every area in Orland we have officers, right? So, and the mall is kind of centrally located and so close to the police department that if there is an incident that's there, we have a great amount of officers that flood that area, but there are undercover officers that you don't see. They may look suspicious to some people, but they are there and they are constantly there, keeping an eye on it to keep everybody safe. Because like I said, I take pride in keeping this village, the people that reside here, the people that work here, and the businesses safe. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, and what he said about undercover officers, keep in mind, they're not supposed to look like clean-cut officers in uniform. They're supposed to look a little grungy because they're undercover. So you may actually look at our undercover and go, maybe I don't want to go be near that guy, okay? But yes, and I believe the mall also, their security will walk you out to the car if you feel at all unsafe.
If you have a concern, we ask, contact, call an emergency phone number, and just tell them, let them know you're concerned, and you got that, and you'd like an officer to come over, then we'd be more than happy to do that, because that's what it's all about.
Yep. Any other public safety questions?
I have a question. On 153rd Street, right where the Palos or Northwestern Hospital, there's an electronic sign. And driving it, I couldn't read it completely, and it said speed limit 40. And then followed behind it, there was a regular street sign that said 35.
It's 40, and then it's about another 100 yards down. It drops to 35. But the goal here is just to get people to slow down on their own.
When you see that flashing sign, it kind of alerts people that maybe they're not paying attention to their speed. That, hey, I need to slow down in this area. Because what we do is, if we get a lot of calls from residents that, hey, we're seeing a lot of speeders in this area, we try to take those speed signs and put them out there just to make the drivers aware, to try to slow it down in that area.
So what is the speed? Is it 40 or 35?
It,
Depends on where you're at.
It's 40 where the sign is. I know because I drive it all the time, and it's 35. It's 35 like 100 yards down. It drops to 35. But you're also coming down a hill before you get to that 40, and most people are going faster than 40, including me.
And those signs, they don't photograph or they don't issue citations.
It's just to make people aware.
Okay.
It's a way to slow the traffic without.
Just another tool that we can use.
Without.
Out there,
Yeah.
tying up time.
Control
the areas.
One of the things that I read about here too, we have to stop cut-through traffic. Well, first off, if it's a road, people are entitled to use it. You don't have a right to not have someone drive on your street. Okay. Now, if you have a gated community, that's a different story because now you're letting people in and out, and it's a private road. But if it's a city road, they can go where they want to go. Okay. So there's no stopping someone from cutting through. The best thing you can do is have a good traffic flow plan, because people, if you have traffic flow issues, then people tend to try and avoid those issues. So there's nothing we can do about that. And let's be real. If we put an officer there, sure, they slow down. We're not going to catch them because they see an officer, they're going to drive slower. So that's just the way it is. And we have 22 square miles. We can't be everywhere. And you know, there's no, it would be unaffordable to try and cover every square foot of Orland Park. But the crime numbers speak for themselves about what we do with what we have. And we do a great job.
Mayor, I'm new to Orland. Are there serious crimes there? It seems like a real calm.
It is a very calm community, you're right. And so serious crimes, so serious crimes, I'll take that to be violent crimes. I can tell you that Orland Park, for the last 4 years, has been the lowest violent crime rates for towns over 50,000 in the state of Illinois. Very low, and most of those crimes are domestic disputes, and half of them are actually resisting arrest on our officers. So I think last year we had 19, and I think 9 of them or 10 of them were resisting arrest on our officers, and 7 or 8 of the others were domestic violence disputes. So very few, very, very few. It's a very safe community in spite of what people may think. And the reality is we have 60,000 people. How many people a week? 1 million people come in here every week or more? We have a lot of people. So you're going to have some crime, but it's mostly petty theft is what it is most of the crime. It's as the chief said, over 90%. And you know, no matter what people say, shoplifting existed at the mall when I was a kid and it was built. Let me tell you. You know, some of the people that I knew were doing the shoplifting, okay? Would that be fair, Bonnie? Yeah. You know, not Bonnie, not me, but people that we knew.
Why are you pointing at Bonnie?
Mayor, will the taxes go up with all that cameras?
So our property taxes are going down. We just reduced our levy by, like we promised we would, by $500,000. We did up our sales tax a little bit, but that's mostly to pay for not so much cameras and those things. That's more operations. That's mostly to pay for our roads and our parks and all that stuff because we've had so much money from the state that's been taken away. They're taking away about $6 million a year. So we've had over $50 million taken away since 2011 from the state. So we just have to somehow to get our roads fixed. That's what we had to do. But property taxes, we've been really focusing on trying to keep those down.
And we're constantly looking at the grants. You know, we're trying to be fiduciary, fiscally responsible to the village. So we did get some grants through the Attorney General for to put up cameras. So it's not money to be spent from the village. We actually got grant money for it. So we're constantly looking to ways to save money.
I'd like to see some money go into your pockets to save that.
So our police officers are paid very fairly, as is the chief. So we try. I will tell you, as a village as a whole, as a management, we do not try to pay the highest amount. I'm a firm believer that if people leave you because if they're looking for the highest pay anywhere they want, you're not getting the best employees. We try to pay fairly, so when we do a assessment of what everyone gets paid, we try to stay kind of right in the middle of all that. We try not to overpay, and we try to make the place a good place to work where people want to be here, because I really think if you're paid a fair wage and it's a good place to work, people will stay. So you have to pay a lot of money to people to go to places they don't like to be.
We got a great community, and you can't pay for that. We appreciate the support. The police department appreciates the support from the community, and that, to me, that's huge. So thank you.
We have a recommendation, we live in a residential area. We don't have kids, so I'm not as worried, but the speed limit is 20. And people drive through there ways.
So we all live in residential areas, number one. So so the question was, she lives in a residential area, and the speed limits are 20, and they don't have kids, and you're worried about that. So I will tell you that the speed limits are artificially set at 20 miles an hour. Okay, that's a decision that was made a long time ago. We know that 20 miles an hour, with today's vehicles, I mean, you put anything gas in and you're going 20 miles an hour. We recognize that, okay? The whole idea is to make sure people are kind of staying under 30 is what we like to see in those areas. I think that's fair. And so that's kind of what we try to do. And we are always monitoring if there's crash statistics or something like that and addressing those. Also, when people complain and say, hey, we've got a lot of speeders or whatever, I will tell you, we've done a lot of speed assessments. So we put up cameras and we track the speeder. And Usually 95% of the people are driving under 30 miles an hour. Usually the average speed's about 27. And usually, but there are a few outliers, and usually the high speed's what? Usually around 45. We'll see. And that's almost the same in every single time we do one of these things. And when we do extra enforcement, almost 100% of the tickets come from your neighbors. It is not outsiders. I think are those pretty accurate statistics? Yeah. So.
And, you know, Orland Park, unlike some other communities, we have our own traffic unit. So when we get a lot of concerns, that's why you see those signs that alert people to let them know. So they're in the subdivisions, but they're everywhere, right? We don't have hundreds of them. We have a handful. So we move them around, and we do address when we get called about speeders in the subdivisions. We do address it. We do our traffic units out there. So not only do we have our traffic unit addressing the speed problems within communities, within residential areas, but then the beat officers, they're out there patrolling, the subdivisions, they're out checking the businesses that are in town. So we do have another unit that specifically looks at just traffic. So.
And we hear, oh, well, you're not stopping the speeders. Well, here's the reality. When there's a car and they see a police car, they don't speed. So, and we just can't be everywhere, right? So, I mean, how many times I see it, and as the mayor, believe me, nothing frustrates me more. I see someone plow through a red light because I wish I had lights and I could flip them on and pull the guy over. I wish I could, because I'm like, what even probably drives me more crazy than that is the idiot who throws a bag out of his window. Oh. That fries me even more than the person who ran a red light, right? And I can do nothing about it. So we're all. But obviously, if I had a squad, they wouldn't do that, right? And so, what's that?
I thought it was kind of funny because on the way over here, I was coming down Wheeler, speed limit 20, right?
Yeah.
There's a car in front, a police car behind him. He's doing 20, and then all of a sudden the police car passes them and takes off.
Well, he probably got a call to go somewhere.
No lights.
Yeah, well, we don't always run with our lights.
Right. I mean, if we're getting a burglar alarm in a bank, we're not doing our lights and sirens on. So it all depends on what. They know the rules and regulations of the police department.
So.
I have a question.
Sure.
So I do have little kids, and I love this township. I literally opened up in this township because I grew up here. I'm a huge fan of the mayor, huge fan of this administration. But the issue that I'm having, and to be blunt, my kids in the places where we can take our children are now turning into, we went to Dave & Buster's, we took our kids. The whole place smelled like weed. It was, I actually gave them a 1-star review because.
Well, if there's weed in those areas, you need to call the police because that's, yeah.
They had to actually physically help us leave because what happened was we were waiting 45 minutes to play a game. We went to go play the game. Someone didn't like the fact that we were taking too long on the game, and they actually pushed us and tried to fight us and said that we weren't going to leave the place. Now, they do have armed security there that they came and helped, but we actually called the police. You guys did come in like 2 seconds.
And we will cite the businesses, and they get cited.
They were apologetic. They literally were so.
Well, they get cited and they get fined so that they have an incentive to drive that out.
What they said was, you guys shouldn't come to the Orland Park one. You should go to the one in Rosemont. Don't come to this one anymore. And this was their manager. So.
Well, that's news to me. That's not a very good.
I actually wrote it on Google and put the experience and gave it a 1-star review, not because the staff wasn't so accommodating. War officers were there in 2 seconds flat and amazing, and they got us to leave with my kids. But it's not. I felt so unsafe.
Well, so if you have those issues, you need to call our emergency or non-emergency number. We will respond. I will tell you, and the chief can, and he wasn't chief at the time, but in 2018 timeframe, 2017, 2018, my first year and a half, 2 years, we had a lot of issues over there. Not so much Dave & Buster's, but and we're not having those issues anymore. So so it has improved a lot. But I mean, this is new info. I know the chief had the same confused look on his face because we haven't seen anything.
If you actually go in there just randomly, probably not with your Orland Park sweater on.
Well, we can send our undercovers. We can send our undercovers over there.
It's so close to my house and such a nice
Well,
activity to take.
the chief now knows, so I would imagine we'll have some people checking it out.
When we hear about something like this, we don't take it lightly, so we'll start working on it. We'll send off.
Yeah, we were terrified. My kids were crying. I was crying. We were terrified.
Yeah, we'll
Like,
even
yeah.
call in the manager at meetings, we'll call in the station.
They were so
Yeah.
nice. They came
But they shouldn't be telling people either to go somewhere else. So it's like, hey, you need to address the issues. So it's good that we know. We will address it. We'll address it. But again, we can't be everywhere, so we don't know. So if you let us know, we always address those issues.
No.
So any other public safety stuff?
Oh, no, not public, no, safety.
Okay. All right. Well, thank the chief for the time that he spent coming here. And I guess the one other thing that I will talk about is public safety related is the police training facility we're building. Now, the good news is that our survey, people were very supportive of that, which they should be. Although the one person who said, well, if we have such a great police department, why do we need to train them to shoot? Well, oh, by the way, we have a great police department because we train them. Because it's not just training to shoot. Obviously, if someone has to pull their weapon and use it, we want them to hit the target they're shooting at, not something else, number one. Number two, what's more important about that training is how to diffuse situations so you don't have to shoot, and how to make sure that if you do have to shoot, there's nobody in the line of fire, that it's the right time to shoot, all of those things. Most officers never have to pull their weapon. Most officers never have to use their weapon. But if you don't train, the time that you do, you'll make a mistake. So, and that's the worst thing that we would ever want to see. So the training that we do is a lot more, yes, it's shooting training, but it's a lot more about how to diffuse situations so we don't have to shoot. Would that be?
Right, I mean, as you can tell, it's not the police shooting range, right, it's the police training facility. So there's a lot that goes into it. There's de-escalation training that we use, there's scenario-based training that goes on. There's defensive tactics training where an officer is not using their weapon and they need to de-escalate the situation or go hands-on with somebody. So it's not just a shooting range, that's part of it, but it's also a training center. And we have the best police department, and I can tell you because I've seen all the police departments around here. I've worked with them. I've worked on a major crimes homicide task force with all these departments. And Orland Park is the best police department in the state.
And as you see this is actually the shooting range. This is where we'll have the shooting range. But you notice there's going to be doors where we can pull vehicles in here, so we can practice about how to close vehicles off, how to do things at the mall to close vehicles off, so that there's not a need to pull a gun. So we get to the situation and stop it before it happens. And if we have to use physical force, that our officers can defend themselves. And I will tell you that since I've been mayor, maybe since you've been chief, I'm not sure, it's right about that time, we've had situations where we've had to draw weapons. And quite frankly, had a situation where we had to draw weapons where I'm amazed that our officers all of them did not shoot. And it would have been they would have been absolutely justified in shooting, but I also tell you they would have been on MSNBC. Okay? And they would have been justified. But they showed restraint because none of our officers want to shoot anyone. In fact, they probably put their own selves at risk by not shooting, because they really, based on everything the information they had, they'd have been completely justified. And none of them pulled the trigger. So, and this person basically wanted suicide by cop is what he was looking for, right? So it's that kind of training is just so critically important. And our shooting range, quite frankly, that we had was dangerous. And so we needed a better facility. So we're going to build a facility that's right, that not only allows for shooting, but all the other training, all the simulation, all that. So.
What's the address of the facility?
This is around 163rd, between 104th and 108th, kind of near where the fire district's training facility is. We have a couple of pieces of property there. That's where we'll be training. So.
Kind of along those lines, the police officers have cameras.
They all have body cameras, yes. And we approved those before the state required it. Go ahead.
Let's say we have them up, they're in all our squad cars, we have it all the officers have body cameras, and that's the support from the mayor.
And officers want body cameras, by the way, because 99% of the time the body cameras exonerate officers for their actions. So they would actually prefer to have the body cameras. So
What's gonna be the cost of the facility?
the cost of this facility is what, 10 million?
Yeah, we're still going through it right now with the architects, and it's roughly a $10 million project.
It's about a $10 million project. Some of it's paid for with our 911 funds,
Funding,
and some other funding we're using. But yeah, so
Will
that's.
the other departments going there, or just?
I would imagine once it's built, we'll probably have some people that want to come use it. So, but that's not. We're not building it with that being part of the plan. That's just kind of a bonus if we can get that done. So, guys, I wanted to bring that up while the chief was here too. So, thanks, chief.
All right, thank you.
Thanks for keeping us safe, and have a good weekend. Okay, so let's see. What other issues did we have that popped up in this survey that I'll talk about, and then it'll, I'm sure, spur other questions. There was the lowering property taxes. That one came out. I already told you that we're doing that. We just approved the levy that's $500,000 less than last year's levy. There's a lot of stuff on crime. There's a lot of stuff in here on schools. It's important to know that the Village of Orland Park has no say-so over our schools. None. What we do is provide safe access to the schools, safe in and out of the schools. A couple of people here commented about how our officers should be more interactive with our grade school students. We have a DARE program and the like. We actually proposed to the schools to have a resource officer at our junior highs, which would be the junior high and the middle school next to it. The schools didn't want to do that, so that's still open on the table. We'd be happy to do that. We think that's a win. That would actually add 3 more officers because the schools pay for that 1 officer. They have a lot of money, so the 3 officers, that would give us 3 more officers. Obviously, overall, they would just be covering the schools for 9 months of the year. So, let's see what else. So crime prevention, those are all big. I'm just kind of flipping through here, and if you got any questions while we go, we talk about. So what I thought was interesting was that, some of the stuff they said which was important for people to make it a healthy community. So number 1 was a sense of safety. Obviously, I think we do that. High quality schools is number 2. I just pointed out we don't really have much say-so, but I agree with you. We want good schools. Our goal is to make sure they're safe. You have safe access to them. Well-maintained residential and commercial properties. We have code enforcement that goes out and enforce. We do not drive every street every day. We don't have the staff for that. It is complaint driven, but if you see somebody that's letting their grass grow to a foot high, call our people. We're going to get out there and we're going to take a look at it. Roadway improvement, I will tell you, that was number 4 on the list here, is very important. Roadway improvement, when I got here, 40% of our roads were in poor condition. We've gotten that down to 17%. And the plan we were on, if we stayed on that plan, we're currently on like year 2029 of that plan. So that's how much extra we've been doing. So because we recognize that that's an area that was poor. Another one that popped up here was investment in public works and police. We're investing in police. We also have a public works facility that is 35 years old, so we're going to revamp that as well. The other one was preserving natural areas and open lands. So we have about 650 acres of open lands in Orland Park. We have 15,000 acres of forest preserve either in or around Orland Park. So you'd be hard pressed to find another community with more open lands. We have 66 parks. And then the next one was recreation facilities as kind of the next one. So obviously we have the Sportsplex, we have Orland Health and Fitness, we have, I think, we don't have a park district. So like Tinley Park has a park district. Their parks are owned by somebody completely different. All our parks are part of the village. So we manage that as part of that. So what the nice thing about that is you don't have a separate taxing body taxing the heck out of you all the time for their parks. So, so that one came up.
Oh, talking about the park is great. Because I have 2 kids, younger one, so he's like 5 years old, another is 5 months. They're both in daycare. So most of our park district program are designed for the early childhood program are more like in the afternoon or in the morning. Like for them, they go daycare, they get home around 4. There's not many activities after that.
We have activities for kids of all ages, I think, but for early child, I don't know exactly what they all are, but we have it for all ages of kids in Orland Park.
Yeah, I mean, the time schedule normally in the morning or like in the early afternoon, but for them, because they're full-time in the daycare,
Right.
8 till 4, and after that, for them, they're very active, you know.
Yeah, so we run, so the question is about age groups with our recreation programs. I can tell you for all of our, thank you for coming. So for all of our programs, we have, we basically look at how many people use it, and so we look at all that. So if you don't have a lot of attendance, and so for younger kids, I'm guessing the attendance in the evenings is probably not very high, and so then we don't do those programs because we only have so many resources. So we try to make sure that everything is, well used. So, but we mix that stuff in all the time. You can certainly always put that input in for recreation, and Bonnie will let them know, and they'll look at it and see what opportunities we have. But I don't know off the top of my head because we have so many recreation programs, I can't keep up.
For the Metro, because I used to commute to Chicago, so for our Metro, we only,
For what?
for Metro,
Yeah.
do we,
We don't control the Metro schedule.
oh, okay.
That's Metro, and our train station does not have great service. It's got much better service than when I got here, but not great service. We don't have any express trains. There's a CREATE project, which is a $1 billion project. There's 4 phases to it. The first 2 phases are almost complete. The next 2 phases aren't completely funded, which will give us the opportunity for more express trains. But Metro has a problem with ridership. They have a problem with expense. They have a problem with capital expense. So we have a lot of availability of trains because we have our train line. We also have the Tinley Rock Island train line, which has got better service. But our corridor and the Heritage Corridor are not getting the service from Metro that we need. The Southwest Conference of Mayors have certainly put that on the agenda for Metro. So, there's always some weird ones in here, like I think the village should plant more trees in parkways. I mean, we require 2 to 3 trees for every parkway. I mean, I don't know how many more trees we can put. When they get to be mature, some of them will be crowded out. So, there's also the one that my favorite in here was the you don't take community input when you're filling out a community survey. I was like, okay. So another one that comes up here is that we're not transparent. The information's not available. And I can tell you when I got here, our village board meetings weren't on audio or video. I was blocked from getting them on video, but we got them on audio. And then as soon as I got control of the board, all of our board meetings are videotaped, and they're on video for you to watch. This is being videoed so people can watch. Everything, all these things are on the website. I can provide we had one person say we don't give enough information, but then they said they wanted us to not spend the money on the newsletters. Like, well, we send out newsletters. At the end of the day, we can give you as much information as you want. If you won't read it, we can't, but the information is there. All the financial information is there. Every board meeting is there. Everything is there. And so, and also, there was stuff about not having community input on things. We have a rec advisory board that we had before. They didn't do anything. Now, all of our parks, all the upgrades to our parks go to them. And they have meetings about them. Like this, Centennial Park West, I think we had 11 public meetings on this. They voted on it twice. We voted on like 3 or 4 times. And then I hear people say, you weren't public. I'm like, I don't know how much more public we can be. I ran on this in 2017. I ran on this in 2021. We ran on it in 2019. We ran on it in 2023. And it was approved in 2003. And we've been doing concerts out there without a venue since 2011. I don't know how much more transparent we can be on stuff like that. So, so some of that is we just scratch our head. It's like we can lead you to water, but we guess we can't make you drink. So, I don't know. I honestly don't know how we could be any more transparent besides sending someone to knock on each person's door, which they wouldn't answer anyways. So, so that's kind of where we're at. So I look at some of this other stuff too. The sense that you would agree with some of these statements. So what I notice is everything is really above 50%, but that we've done a good job upgrading our infrastructure, like 70% either strongly agree or agree. We've done a lot with our water. We just did another leak survey. We found 12 more, we've got 12 leaks in our system, which believe me is very small for a system our size, but it's I think 5 million gallons of water that we're losing, so we're gonna fix those. No, those are water mains, just underground that we just didn't know existed, are leaking. Fiscally responsible with resources was 62%. I will tell you that when I got here, we were supposed to be using our operating reserves right now. We were supposed to be in the hole. Instead we had 50% operating reserves, and we were able to use that for capital projects. So I think we've basically squeezed about as much out of this as we can in the last 6 years. Let's see. So priorities. Interesting priorities, replacement of underground utility infrastructure, sewer, water, storm. We're doing that all the time. That was the highest priority people had. Roadway improvements, we're doing that all the time. There was a comment in here about we're doing all these new park projects, but we're not spending enough on local parks. Well, when I got here, we were fixing one park every 2 years of our local parks. We doubled what we spend on fixing all the smaller parks on top of doing this. So we have doubled that, and in the last 4 years, we got into every park and made improvements. And not just one, not just two, we got into all of them. And we fixed what needed to be fixed, not what they were doing before is let's just overhaul a whole park. When you got 66 parks and you're doing one every 2 years, that's 132 years to get through your parks. Okay? That doesn't work. So what we did is we evaluated all the parks and said, on these conditions, and we focused on that one, accessibility because the laws have changed a lot, and safety. So that was like vehicle safety versus kids, all that stuff. And those were the biggest drivers. And we rated things from poor to good. And anything that was poor condition over the last 3 years, we got into and fixed. Now we're evaluating them again. Well, now we've fixed all the accessibility and safety issues, so now we're focused more on overall condition. And then we'll do the same thing. Over 5 years, we'll take the things that are in the worst priority and get to as many of them as we possibly can. That's a much better long-term process to do that regularly. And our rec guys aren't here, so I can throw them under the bus a little bit. They always want to replace all the equipment every 15 years. Well, that's what the manufacturers say. Like, well, if you maintain it well, I want to replace it when it needs replacement. If it lasts for 35, good for us, because it's good for our finances, right? So we try to look at, and it's interesting, people always say they want new stuff, but the minute you try and get rid of their old playground, whew, they are not happy that it's changing. So there's two constants in life, two things people don't like. They don't like the way things are, and they don't like change. So, so that's just the way it works. So I'll open it up to any questions that you have.
I have a question,
Sure.
We live in the Eagle Ridge area there.
Uh-huh.
And we have a pass-through road, Luetta. Cars go off 108, to avoid the light on 179.
Yeah.
And here, sure, it's 20 miles an hour, but as you say, warning rather suggestion. When they come to the intersection for, is that Cross Street?
Wolf,
108th?
No.
Bernard,
Bernard.
Bernard comes off under 79.
There's a park across the street, but it's a real beautiful park, by the way.
Yep.
Well, that curb that you put in about 2 years ago gets ran over every time. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they don't
Maybe you
pause.
should put a rock or something yourself. Maybe you should slow down, because there's cars.
So Luetta and Bernard, so can you just write that down for Public Works to take a look at Luetta and Bernard? We've done that before, we've put some big boulders and stuff like that.
Northwest corner. They
No-
run-
Okay, they run over the corner, okay.
Bernard and what?
Luetta.
Which is very nice, you repaved Luetta, it's
Oh,
wonderful.
beautiful.
Yeah.
One other thing we've been living down off of Wolf Road, coming down 167 going south. There's a business.
Oh, yeah.
Joey's? It's a private home, but I think it's a business also. He's got 6 of those containers, shipping containers.
Yeah, so the problem is along Wolf Road there on 167th, that's unincorporated Cook County. And then further south, it becomes unincorporated Will County. And so there's a lot of unincorporated properties we don't have control over. Believe me, we try. We try to clean that up. We want to try and annex some of those areas so that we can have control over that.
Really hideous looking.
We know. We know, we agree, we're doing everything we can, but unfortunately it's not our jurisdiction. That's the problem. And so in Will County, there's another piece of property further south. In Will County, the Einoder property is specifically, and they filled it up with semi-containers. And it's right next to our village properties. It was zoned, now he's got grandfather rights to some extent, but it's zoned R1, which is residential. And so we complained to Will County, Mokina supported our complaint, and the Will County Board allowed the zoning to change to I-2, which is the heaviest industrial you can be, which, oh, by the way, is spot zoning and probably illegal. And so now, that was their solution. Rather than make them clean it up, that was their solution. So we try. It's a regular thing that we're constantly working on. That whole corridor from, that whole unincorporated corridor between 167th and I-80 down Wolf, there's a lot of unincorporated pieces we're aware of, believe me. There's some on the east side, too, that aren't so pretty.
Joey's keeps this place real nice.
Yeah, Joey's, yeah, I know. And the motor works is good, but then the stuff next to it is bad, yep. And the restaurant, actually, that's unbuildable land. It's all floodplain, so it's unbuildable. So that's why it doesn't get sold. So we're trying to figure out ways to get that cleaned up and get it demolished. And there's a lot of things we're looking at, and that's going to be a longer-term situation.
So I played pickleball at Dugan, and when I didn't make it to your meetings, I understand you guys took in a lot of information
Yep.
from pickleball players. I just want to say thank you.
You're welcome. Do we have a Dugan one? I don't think we have a Dugan.
Just building it, you guys
Yeah.
took in the information.
Yeah, so that goes back to, we listened to the Rec Advisory Board, we had a bunch of meetings, we talked about this stuff, and so what we're doing is putting in, I think, 10 pickleball courts. There's still gonna be a couple tennis courts. And then, because the old library is coming down. Needs $6 million worth of work. We don't use it that much. We offered it to the schools because they wanted to add space for early childhood. We thought that might be a good location for them to do that. They were not interested, so we said, well, why don't we just level it and expand the park? And so we're doing that. The other thing we're actually having the conversations about, early conversations that just came up as well, is we're building one soccer field there. We're thinking that maybe that might be a place for one more turf field, just because we have another, there's another football program and there's soccer, and so it might give, because the nice thing about having some turf fields, some artificial, they're expensive, but the nice thing about them is having a few of them allows us to rotate a couple of grass fields out of service for a little while to get them reconditioned. If we don't have that, those turf fields are always being used, and then they just get beat up, and you just can't. So you need to rotate them out for a while. So now having a few turf fields will allow us to do that. So,
Good idea.
yeah.
Between 143rd and 151st on Wolf Road,
Okay.
when it rains, it floods and
Yep.
flows the street.
Yep, 143rd, so Wolf Road flooding. So for those of you who've been to these things before, this comes up a lot. That is a state road. There is a state project that would actually fix that. That state project is probably not going to happen in my lifetime. We're focused on, right now, we're focused on the 143rd Street is a higher priority. 143rd Street from Southwest Highway all the way to Cook also floods. That also has a project, a state, because it's a state road also. Both of those are state roads. So that's the problem. And that one would fix that problem as well. That problem is that road is actually the #1 project for the whole Southwest Conference of Mayors before I was even mayor. So the whole region recognizes that's our #1 priority, not just Orleans. And we've also gotten $7.5 million from, actually we've gotten about $10 million from the federal government on that project. It's a state project. They still aren't ponying up any money. So we're working on everything we can to get those projects in.
What can we do to pressure the governor?
You're not going to do anything more than what you've been doing. The IDOT is aware of it. We're aware of it. We have 3 basic flooding places. We have 143rd, we have Wolf, and we have Southwest Highway. All state roads, all with projects that would fix it. So the Southwest Highway construction starts next year, so that's going to be, that one will be done. And we came up with an engineering solution that actually helped really make that, for the last few years, it hasn't been the problem it was my first couple. So we've solved that. The Wolf Road project, the other thing with the Wolf Road flooding is that what happens there is going to change a little bit once we get 143rd done, because there'll be more detention for 143rd. So we don't want to put any of our resources towards it until we get the project that we're working on to try and get that done. So, and we've acquired some land to help make that happen, but it's a state project, so it's a long-term problem. You would think the state would want to do something with it because they have to keep bringing out their equipment and shutting down the road. Yeah. So, but anyways, so.
I think that what you did with the carnival this year was phenomenal. It was so nice, it was so safe. I told Bonnie when I came to get my license, we had so much fun that it was censored where you couldn't come in without your parents or someone of adult. We had the best time.
Yeah.
Thank you, because it was perfect.
So we heard we got a lot of grief for it. Oh, it looks like it looks like this or that because we put up fencing. Here's the bottom line. The bottom line is, I will tell you that all of that, and the chief's not here, so I can't pat him on the back with him here, but I pat him on the back. That particular plan, so you know what happened a month before that at Tinley Park. Right, so we know what happened a month before that at Tinley Park. I can tell you that none of our plan changed. Our plan was already there because the chief told me in January, he goes, Mayor, I'm concerned about a flash mob at this location based on what's happening in the city. He goes, I think we got to prepare for it. I can tell you the Chamber of Commerce who put this on, they flipped the lid because of the expense. And I looked at him, I said, if something happens here, neither you nor I can answer that question. I said, I have to keep people safe. I said, and so we worked out an arrangement where we sponsored some, so we ate some of the cost. And then they paid it back if they made enough money, and they did because they made enough money. But as soon as that Tinley Park incident happened, I texted him and I said, now do you get it? Yeah. Because, and it was safe, and our Taste of Orland was safe, all that was safe. Speaking of Taste of Orland, next year it's going to be at Centennial Park West. So if you've been out, how many of you have been out there for a concert? Yeah. So the foundation is poured for the stage. They're currently moving the dirt. By December, they will have all this asphalt will be in, except for the final course. All of the sod will be laid too, in here. So, and then basically the rest of it will be built up over the winter. Then they'll finish the parking lot back here next year and finish the asphalt and all the touch. So April or May, that's going to open next year. So Taste of Orland will move there. The nice thing about that is we will have fencing around it already, a little more ornamental, but also security. And so. And the entrances, I live over here, the entrances will actually stay open when we don't have events, so people can still use the space. But we're well on our way with this. So we're still trying to get some of our acts booked for Taste and the things like that. It's just the way things work. You've probably seen, if you've seen some news, this concert, I just saw it today, Alanis Morissette, and they list all the places they're going, right? So it's just starting to, all these people are locking in all these things. So we're part of all that, trying to get that done. The biggest thing we have is the competition with the Tinley, because it's owned by Live Nation. They have an affiliation with Live Nation. So anybody who's any act that's affiliated with Live Nation won't go here. So those are some of the conflicts we have. So you have to deal with all of those types of things when you're trying to get acts in there. But we have one that we have for sure that's booked that I know people are going to love, but I'm not going to announce it until we get them all. But we're going to this is going to be great to have all of our events here located where we've got a lot of parking, and it will help our security as well. So while it's a costly venue to build, it's a venue that people are going to enjoy. It's going to bring people to Orland Park. And on an operational basis, it will make policing it cheaper. It will make we won't have to rent stages, and we won't have to rent generators and all those things that we have to do every time we do it. We won't have to do that anymore. So there are some operational things that become less costly.
To beat that in, some of this can be like permanent structures, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, you're going to have a permanent stage. So you have a permanent stage. Do we have another view of it? No? Okay. So you have a permanent stage. This is a permanent concrete seating area, but it's concrete. So if we ever wanted to do something where we had VIP seating or something, we could do it. But you have a permanent stage that's sheltered as well. So if it rains, they can still perform. You have back here, you have places where they can load onto the stage. They also have a dressing room and showers and all of that kind of facility. Then you have all of these vendor areas are permanent. So it's being built for the Taste. Okay, so there's 20 of these vendor areas. Those will be where the food vendors are. They'll be right there where the stage is now instead of off in a parking lot. Okay, and all the electricity is already run to them, so they won't have to run generators like they do now. These will all have concrete pads. All that you see here in the gray, that's all asphalt. So now you have a service area that the vendors can serve those and bring food and bring stuff in without mixing in with the the patrons, right? As they say at the Masters. Same thing back here. They can go back here so that all of the people coming to enjoy are not bothered by the service trucks. This is a retaining wall because of the hill. The hill that's there now is here. So if you've been out to that, that's where the hill is now. The hill's going to get moved back here. So, so it's going to be great. It's going to be great. It's going to be a great venue.
Where's the parking?
Well, the parking is the Metro here, and then you've got the Metro on the other side at Centennial Park.
Important question. Indoor women's bathroom.
So there are some indoor bathrooms like there are now. They're going to get there'll be some, but and then we always, I mean, we can't put enough bathrooms out there for these events, so we'll always have a lot of porta potties. So you know, it is what it is. We can't. Yeah. So make friends with somebody who lives over here. So. Any other questions? Other things that we have pictures of, I guess, while we got them here, I'll talk about those. So we have Schuessler Park. I got to check the time too, because I do have, got to make sure I'm not here too long because I have a meeting at 2. So this is Schuessler Park. How many people are familiar with Schuessler Park? So Schuessler Park was actually, the history of that in the mid-60s, early 60s, was the first time that anybody, the then mayor and then trustee Dugan, not Mayor Dugan yet, got the developer of the whole fairway area to give land for a park. What land did that developer give? The land that was hard to build on. Of course that's what they did. That's what they always do, right? So, but the community came together and the community built baseball, they built a baseball field over here. They actually, the sod farms that were located here donated the sod. They had the hardware store donated the fencing. My dad used to tell me the story, and they basically came out and the community built these fields. Okay, that's how it was built. But obviously back in the mid-60s, it wasn't engineered. You know, they had a pond and they just kind of did it. Well, anyone who's been out there and played there knows it gets really wet, gets really swampy, and a lot of flooding issues. So the fields have almost become non-usable because of how many times we couldn't use them. So really needed to be redeveloped. And so interestingly, no one seems to care about Schuessler Park on this survey, but on the previous survey, it was the highest rated park for needing redevelopment because of all the, because everyone knows it's not usable. So the baseball field is staying. The small baseball field is becoming the new sledding hill. The sledding hill is currently over here. There's going to be a new sledding hill over here, and it's actually going to have a path that you can walk up and use for accessibility so that handicap accessible kids can get up there and use the sledding hill, so which is great. The pond, if you go there right now, the pond is empty with the exception of this one little area up here where the fish all migrated to. And you know, we found some interesting things in there like a tire, some other things. But we're going to dredge that whole area because over 50, 60 years, silt and everything else have filled that pond up. So they're going to dredge it. It's going to be able to hold more water. The other thing is that we're going to put 2 turf fields there. So those are going to be artificial turf. The benefit of artificial turf is 2 things. One is underneath you can put water storage. And we need water storage underneath because of all the water that goes in here. The second thing is, if it does rain, artificial turf, you can still use it. So this is going to be a dedicated home of the football program because football tears up grass fields, just destroys them. Because they practice in anything. One muddy, sloppy day and it just wrecks the fields. Well, it's not going to wreck this. So we have 2 fields. We're adding parking to handle the potential more usage. There's going to be an all-inclusive playground, all abilities playground. That was just approved the other night. The concepts were approved for that. Actually, I take that back. We kicked that back to the Rec Advisory Board because staff did not go to the advisory board like they're supposed to. So we sent it back to them. But it will eventually be approved. And that's the one, that's why you see Michael Schofield, the 3rd Sports Complex. They've donated some money towards it. So there's some stuff there for Kendall Coyne and Michael Schofield, if you know who they are. And they're helping to raise money. So Michael Schofield played for the Bears last year. He won a Super Bowl with the Broncos. He went to Sandburg. His dad's actually the fire chief. And Kendall Coyne, his wife, won, 5 or 6 gold medals and 4 or 5 silvers. She was the captain of the U.S. women's hockey team. So they live here, and they're working to raise money for this all-inclusive playground as part of this. So currently, if you go there, you'll see this whole area right here. There's like a 20-foot hole, and they poured concrete, about 9 pours of concrete, about 8 feet of it, with all kinds of vaults to store water, and there's like 800 structures going in there. So that's what they're doing right now. And this will also open next year. So, and it's interesting because the vaults are really only here, and then this area will just be dug enough to build for the field. So, because they didn't need more storage, they just needed the stuff that was there from the engineering. So that's being done right now. So there's another project going on. So you got this project, and the Centennial Park West will open next year. Dugan Park with your pickleball courts, probably 2 to 3 years out. Probably 2 years to start, 3 years to be done. Police training facility will start next year and probably be finished at the end of next year, beginning of the following year. The other thing we have going on is the Veterans Center. Is anyone familiar with the current Veterans Center? Yeah. It's on West Avenue. Well, that building needs about $400,000 in repairs. It's really beyond its useful life. So there's another building where our parks, some of our parks folks are at right now. If you think about where the Hostert cabins are, just a couple hundred yards down the road by John Humphrey on the off of West Avenue, there's a house there. It looks like a house, but it's actually got some of our offices. So that building's actually in really good shape. So we're going to move the veterans there, and as a member of both of the organizations that use it, the space that you're going to have, the space that we're going to have inside here for meetings is actually bigger than what we currently have. The storage is more. We're going to build this more storage facility for them, and they'll have a better ability to lock up their rifles and that kind of stuff. They'll also have more parking. The other really cool thing, I think, as a member of both, is that they're going to have there's a brand new deck on this thing. It's in the forest, so they can have their picnics. They can have it's handicap accessible. There's a lot of positives to moving to this space. Of course, back to the things people don't like. They don't like the way things are or change. We're dealing with a little of that, but I think when we move this is going to be fantastic. And I'm speaking as a member of both organizations. I think it gives them a longer-term home than the one they're sitting in now. But those are kind of the big projects we've got going on right now.
Mayor, where is that field located?
This, so that's at Schuessler Park, which is off of 88th Avenue, kind of right behind Riviera.
Oh.
Back behind that. Like a block or two behind that. Yeah. So Riviera is like right, these are the, if you remember the Riviera golf course where these condos were built or townhomes were built, that's the Riviera golf course right here. So Riviera is like right here.
Speaking of that, do you know anything about what's going to happen to the sportsplex with Riviera?
Nope, I know they've been working on fixing it, but speaking from a business perspective, I don't know how they economically make that work, but.
There's so many millions that they have to put in to make it, they have to get up to code.
They have to put in millions of dollars to get.
Oh, I know, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm not sure what's going to happen there. If you ask me, I was surprised a restaurant moved in there and a banquet facility moved in there. I thought that it would actually make sense for that area, it's not really a commercial area, to kind of turn into townhomes or something which matches what is there now. That's what I kind of thought would be the highest best use, but that's what they haven't done it yet. So, that was something else that came in here. Oh, the village should mandate businesses for this and mandate. Here's the thing. We're still a free society.
Yeah.
First off, government shouldn't get into the doing business, right? They should let. Our job is to create the environment with which businesses succeed and want to come here. We can't say, hey, you need to move here or you need to move here, right? Now, there are some businesses we aren't really, that the people of Orland Park aren't thrilled with having, like we don't want to have big cannabis dispensaries. I think the people have pretty much made that clear. There's some people that would disagree with that, but most people I think would agree with that. So we have zoning laws to prevent some of that stuff, right? But by and large, if it's within our zoning, they can do, as long as they follow our laws, businesses can move in, and we can't necessarily control it. So if there is a business that we think will be really attractive, like we thought with the mall, Von Mauer filling one of those spaces, we can create some, in their case, sales tax incentives. So we're getting nothing from there. So we get a sales tax from them. It's something from something is better than nothing from nothing, right? So anything we get and share back, we share back about half. So it's kind of win-win. So we will do things to attract businesses. Some of the other stuff, a bunch of people said, we don't want any more medical. Like, well, the reality is medical wants to come here. The reality is medical has doctors and nurses and patients and all kinds of things that come and eat, right? So we still have more medical coming. Silver Cross is opening next year. On LaGrange Road and 171st.
Oh, really?
Yeah, 50,000 square feet and another 50,000 to probably come. Northwestern's potentially going to expand some more. DuPage Medical Center, there's been some medical centers hunting around here, which would be great for this area because it would really boost business. So, hey, medical's great. There's nothing wrong with medical. So those are those are some of the things that we have coming.
Are there more businesses going to come around right here? I feel like everyone goes to LaGrange.
Well,
we would like some more.
Well, LaGrange generally has more traffic, and so there seems to be something. But I think this area has developed a lot. I mean, you got Rainbow Cone came in. I think we had something else come in over here. So there was a lot of vacancies that were over here. There were a lot of vacancies over here that have gotten filled. So, we're doing okay. And keep in mind that's not Orland, so this is so.
I think that's where I get mixed up because across the street.
Yeah, I mean Orland pretty much ends just past that light, and then it jots back in. It's kind of weird. We just had this one little section. Sure. Any other? Thanks for coming. Any other questions about what's going on?
What's going on in Baker Square?
At Baker Square, where?
Right there.
Right there. What's there?
Grace Road, it's going to be a Korean barbecue.
Yeah.
Korean barbecue.
Yeah, we've been dealing with that that's the one on LaGrange Road. The one here, I don't think we have anything for yet. So, but they've been working on that for 18 months. So a lot of these things are taking a long time.
What happened to Sears at the end there?
So Sears has been bought by someone else. It was supposed to be a theater. The COVID hit. They backed out. They sold it. Someone else bought it. They didn't even know what they bought. In fact, when we told them that they owned the parking lot and the ring road and actually the access road on Regent, her exact response was, "What?" So that one's a little bit tricky. Obviously, it's something we want to get done. But again, they own it, so there's really not much we can do. The stuff they wanted to do, we said, no, that's not going to happen. So we can have some control over what they do. But we had a conversation with someone yesterday that would be interested in that if they can pry it loose from them at a decent price. So, I have some thoughts about what it should be, but again, I'm not a developer, so I don't want to do what my predecessor did and said, oh, it should be, and so therefore it is, and I'm going to spend village money on it. No, we're not going to do that. We're going to let the developer come up with a plan. That kind of brings us maybe to the triangle and the TIF. We do have a project for that. We did approve the term sheet. The next step is to approve the development agreement. Some of the comments in there is, how dare you spend $33 million of Orland Park money for this project? Well, here's the deal with this project. If the Orland Park does not contribute to the project in some way, it won't get built because they're underwater, which is the whole idea of doing a tax incentive financing district. The goal is what it does, it sets your property tax at zero, and Chris's counterpart Vince did a great video on it. So I highly recommend, if you don't understand how a TIF works, go to the village website, watch it. It's worth 7 minutes of your life because you really understand how it works. But it sets the property tax at its current level. Since the village owns it, the current level is 0. So whatever they build, whatever property tax it generates, goes into the TIF and can be used for certain things that are public goods, so parks, infrastructure, those types of things. So that's what that 33 million, well, we may front some of that. That comes back to us from that property tax. That's the goal of those types of projects. The problem with the TIF that's currently there is two things. One is they put it in with no plan. So TIFs are only so long. So obviously if you get 20 years of property tax, you get more money back. If you do like they did, which is don't build anything for 11, you just lost half your TIF with no benefit coming back. Then we put in an apartment building and we put up $64 million, which is insane. We put infrastructure in, which, oh, by the way, runs through the middles of these properties. We actually, of that 33 million, 5 of it's to move the utilities they put through the middles of properties. I mean, just stupid stuff. And then here's what you would never do. So again, you get incremental property tax. Who does not pay property tax?
Charities.
Non-profits. University of Chicago pays no property tax, so why would you put a non-for-profit in a TIF? Bad idea. Now, they may expand into the new TIF. We've made it very clear that they cannot own it. It has to be a lease. So therefore, because if it's a lease, they have to pay the property tax. Because it's just, those are just bad ideas. So the existing TIF there, which has got 3 or 4 years left, that's it. So we're 19 years into it, is $31 million in the hole. We're never getting that back. That's lost. So the question is, if we set up a new TIF, and that's why we did all these numbers, so the $33 million we would be contributing, based on the projections, we will get $33 million to cover that cost, so that it never costs us anything. And we've staged it in such a way in 3 phases that if for some reason the project gets partially complete and the last phase is they can't get it complete, we won't have 33 million in yet. We'll have like 10, right? So that we still can get that money back. So we're trying to reduce our risk as much as possible. But the reality is we couldn't get anything there in the current marketplace without some kind of incentive, which is why it was done in the first place. But the problem was TIFs are really for blighted areas. They're not for things that are fully rented. And so it was back then. It was fully rented, and they used the money to buy people out. And that's the problem. What you want with a TIF, so another good TIF potential project is like the Andrew property. It needs $9 million or so of cleanup, okay? So that would be something the village would be willing to TIF because we want it to get cleaned. So for the right project, that we can get it cleaned up, we would certainly be happy to TIF it. Now the school districts and everything, we're not going to get properties. Well, you're not getting anything now. So yeah, it'll be 20 years before you get it, but at least you're going to get something in the future.
Does Andrew still own it?
Andrew does not own it, and nor does the people that bought Andrew. They don't own it either. It was sold. So there is somebody that's looking. So we have things for that project. We have things for 159th and LaGrange, both corners, potential. John Humphrey at 143rd. So we have a lot of interesting projects coming. So, and the village's philosophy, I think one of those projects has some apartments because they're next to apartments and only apartments would go there, but they have stuff on the outside. Our philosophy is no apartments unless it's allowed by right, which some zoning allows it by right, or if it makes sense for the project. So if you think of like Pep Boys, that whole piece of property behind it, kind of Pep Boys carved out of it, there's apartments behind that, okay? No one's ever building single family back there. Probably not doing townhomes back there, right? It's up against Orland Hills. It's not near any of our single family. So there's gonna be a hotel, some restaurants, some retail along LaGrange and 143rd, but behind it, there'll be some apartments. But that's a place where it kind of makes sense. But that's really the only place we have right now where we see that potential. And that would be worth it to get that area built out.
Yeah, right.
Joe, is there anything going on at 179th and Wolf at the Jewel? That's
Well, you got the Aldi went in there.
right. Yeah.
Aldi went in there, and they've got to fill their outlots and all that kind of stuff. So there's, we don't always hear about every outlot that's going in there, but there's something going in there. Well, Joey's is going to like 183rd. They're going to move, and that'll go into Orland. Right now, it's not in Orland.
Yeah.
It's in Orland Township, so we'll actually get the sales tax from it. So that'll be great. So we got that moving. I think there's something else looking to go there. I don't know what it is.
By the Aldi?
No, by the Jewel. I can't remember what it is.
At one time, you wanted the state of Illinois to put an office in.
Yeah, we had an agreement. They were gonna go over there and fully rent and have a full open spot and fill up a lot of that space. But the township swooped in and offered them stuff for free. So.
Do you ever hear anything about the Jewel stores at all? They're supposedly going to be sold.
Well, there's an acquisition going on with it, so we don't know.
Okay.
So I don't see them going. I mean, they're all busy, so I don't see them going anywhere. They may change names.
Yeah. It's true.
So. Yeah, Kroger, the thing is they can't keep everything. For antitrust, they have to split some of this stuff off. So that's above my pay grade. We'll just figure out what it is when it happens. So, but
A nice try to run for Congress.
yeah,
But in a way,
I got a better job right now than that job there, trust me.
You lost, but we won because you're still here.
I think I won too. So, thank you. In fairness, I think I also won in the long run.
I think so too, my
Pain.
My question is actually related kind of to the election. There were obviously all kinds of controversial, conversation and issues regarding fraud. I happen to know we did mail it. We tracked it, and our votes never got counted.
This is 2020.
Yeah.
Yeah, the rules, I don't want to get too far astray into the politics, but the rules for the elections are what they are. I don't think the controls are tight enough for what they've done. That's my own personal opinion, but the rules are what they are. So what I tell people is get your vote in. Typically, voting, if you vote by mail or if you vote early, it's not your vote. Your vote gets counted. Typically, that's not the issue. The issue more is around votes that, for people who are no longer here, getting counted that shouldn't get counted. That's more of the issue. So, but the best way you can do that is to win elections and change the rules so that they're more fair. But I will say, we all heard about Arizona and their issues. Well, I will just tell you, for the 8 years prior to the last election, you had a Republican governor, a Republican Senate, and a Republican legislature, and they didn't fix it. So they got and I told my brother who lives there, I said, blame it on yourselves. You didn't fix it. You had a chance to fix it, you didn't fix it. So at the end of the day, the rules are the rules. We want to make it easy for people who are allowed to vote. We want everyone's vote to count once. We don't want people who are not allowed to vote to have their vote count. I think we don't want cheating and fraud. I think that's a common goal. The question is, how do you achieve that goal? And I think we're a long way from achieving it here in Illinois. And at the end of the day, I think that's the thing. We want people who can vote to be allowed to vote, people who are legally allowed to vote, their vote to count, and for people who can't vote, we don't want fraud and cheating. That's it. So what can we put in place to stop that from happening? So.
You're doing a great job.
Thank you. Thank you. So, great. Well, thank you all for coming. I really appreciate it. And again, thanks to Sue for doing this.
Thank you.